So welcome everyone to today's social system mapping OnRamp session for today, October 14th, 2024. Your hosts today, as usual, are me, Christine Capra, co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum, and Kara Martiner, who is tech support and producer at Greater Than the Sum. So for today's agendas, we're going to, I think we'll skip our chat intros because I think we all know each other. We probably know Evan the least, and Evan's going to walk us through his map. And we're not going to do this part. Oops. The intro to social system mapping. Sorry, I forgot to take it off. What we're going to do today is we're just going to focus on Evan's map, which I'm excited about because he's using the dual elements feature a little more higher level than usual, which is he's got organizations and coalitions as opposed to people and organizations. And I'll let him tell you more about that when we get there. But mostly we're just gonna Evan's going to share his map, and then we're going to ask questions. And for those of you, I'm thinking, well, we'll see if we need the optional post-session half hour, and I'm not sure if Evan's prepared for that, but we'll find that out when we get, okay. So then probably we'll skip it today. So we won't do half our agenda. How's that? Okay. So we're going to skip this. And, oh, I thought I hit all these. Okay, here we are. So I'm just gonna, so Evan has been working on this map for a while. He and I have talked about it in office hours a few times, and this is our my first time to get to see it. And so I'll just hand it over to you, Evan, and say thanks so much for being with us today on a holiday.
Thanks, and hey everyone, it's good to be with you, and hi for those on the recording. My name is Evan Kuras. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm an evaluation consultant with a firm called Data Plus Soul Research, formerly known as MXM Research Group. I live in Somerville, Massachusetts, and that's where our firm is based in Massachusetts. And I'm excited to tell you about our work on this project. And so I'll start by giving you the backstory of like the why we need a map like this. In Massachusetts, like many states, there are many organizations working on transportation justice, transportation advocacy, and these are grassroots organizations. These are large nonprofits that are concerned about economics. These are coalitions, social justice-based coalitions, community groups, residents. Like there's just a lot of people that care about bike lanes, public transit, electrifying rail, zero vehicle, what's it called? Sorry. Zero, wow, blanking on like safe streets and like pedestrians not being killed. It's called Vision Zero. Sorry, Vision Zero. Pedestrians not being killed in transit. And there's just tons of intersecting transportation issues, and especially for folks who are taking an equity or a justice lens, it can get really messy really fast because there's a lot of trade-offs for, bike lanes versus public transit versus accessibility and mobility and parking, and it's a messy space. And in Massachusetts, many of the organizations working together on what we call mobility advocacy had started, recognizing that there's a lot of us doing this, and there's a lot of coalitions through which we do this together. And it's pretty hard to figure out who's working on what, which meetings should I go to, where are our strategies overlapping, and like how can we better align and coordinate so that we can be more targeted, our asks are more salient to policymakers, but also especially for the like lowest resource community-based organizations, they can figure out the fewest possible coalition meetings to go to so they can have the biggest impact and have, rather than sending their staff to everything. So one of the foundations here in Massachusetts, who had an ear to this problem, decided, okay, maybe we can help by making a map of who's participating in these various coalitions. And in doing that map, we can accomplish two things. One, we can help see and understand what, like where there's overlap, like who's participating in a lot and who's not participating in many. So where there's overlap and where there's gaps, and help organizations be able to make better decisions about where to participate, and kind of how to align strategy. But also there was a hope that the like wow factor of seeing how messy and how overlapping and complicated this map was could be enough for both coalitions and organizations who are maybe taking up too much space to say, okay, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to do this alone or even at all if someone else is also doing it and it's the same people that are going to the same meetings. And so it's both a tool for making decisions, but also, um, a psychological or a communications tool to be like, this is the state of the ecosystem, even without looking at the details. What can we make sense of and decide about together? And so they put out an RFP, and our team won the bid to help them create this type of resource. Um, and through many conversations with the foundation, we decided to convene an advisory team of especially community-based organizations to guide the map and ensure that whatever tool we did and how we did it would be most useful to them. And worked with them through a series of sessions and a kind of wider network of these mobility organizations, all of whom were grantees of this foundation, to kind of sketch out what the map should be. A hard part of these early conversations were boundaries. Who gets to be on the map? What counts as an organization? What counts as a coalition? What counts as Massachusetts? What counts as transportation? I mean, every one of those is like so hard. An example boundary, if you, so Boston is our big city here in Massachusetts. Um, if you're a neighborhood kind of focused coalition of residents working on a specific transit corridor within the city of Boston, like within at the scale of a neighborhood or less, you're not on the map because this is a statewide map in which the types of decisions that we heard organizations really want to know and to work around are these like larger scale policy questions that are going to be larger than a neighborhood street. And so having lots of dots for Boston in every city of like these small neighborhood coalitions of residents, like just would make the map unworkable. But that's tough because you talk to advocates and they're like, but that street, we need to be represented. We need to figure out what coalitions to be part of to work on our issue. So we made a lot of decisions like that. And we decided to use sumApp and Kumu for the map. And the basic logic of the map would be that there's two elements. There's two types of entities that we'd want to show on the map. And I will show you the map, but I want to give you the kind of logic. You can look at my face and my hands first. There's coalitions, which is in what we'll call tables and advocacy groups and campaigns that consist of organizations. So organizations are a little bit more salient. That's like your classic nonprofit or large collective of residents or activists that the organizations participate in coalitions. Maybe they send a representative to meetings or they sign on to letters. But those are the two kind of scales. We have coalitions and then the organizations that they consist of. And so that's what the map shows, which organizations participate in which coalitions. And so starting with the grantees of this foundation, we made a survey guided by the advisory team for both the organizations to ask pretty basic information that's kind of findable on the website, and then coalitions, where we asked a lot more information because not all coalitions have good websites. And importantly, we asked all the coalitions, who are your members? So the coalitions we identified through the grantees, we had a short list of 20 coalitions that fit our boundaries. And from those 20 coalitions, we said, who are your members? And that gave us a list of like 400 organizations. And we sorted through those, and some of those didn't fit our boundaries. And so we ended up with, about 250 organizations that we could show on the map that are part of these 20 coalitions. And we decided we know this information because we've asked the 20 coalitions. Let's show it on the map. And then once everyone can see it, we can start to engage each of those individual organizations who may not have ever heard about this effort because we didn't ask them directly. We asked their coalitions, who's your members? Give us the name of the organization, we'll do the rest. Okay, are you ready to see the map? All right, so here we have it. This is the Massachusetts Mobility Constellations map with my firm's old name still as our username. And you can see on the legend, oh, you know what, let me make the scale. This is probably a little bit easier to see, right? Okay. So you can see from the legend that there's two types of nodes. There's coalitions, which are like yellow, and the organizations that are like teal. And so you can see how the organizations participate in coalitions. You can see how there's organizations that participate in multiple coalitions that are kind of more in the center, or ones that are more in the periphery that only participate in maybe one coalition. But this is the kind of bird's eye view. The funder especially really loved the metaphor of constellations, that this is like a star map. And if you just know about all the organizations, but you don't know how they're connected through coalition work, it's just looking up at the night sky. But by understanding how they're woven through coalitions, we can make sense of them as we make sense of the sky through constellations, or like intentional connections between stars. So this map was made with information from maybe like 50 entities. That's the grantees of this foundation and the 20 or so coalitions that we got in touch with. That means that maybe 50 of these nodes have like actual information populated by the entity themselves. And the rest of them don't. You'll see that there's 150 elements. Oh, I said there were like 200. Revise my numbers from before. We have like 20 coalitions and then 130 organizations on this map. And so there's about 100 elements to which they've never interacted with the map, despite some of our efforts and the efforts of their coalition, which are somewhat limited, and something that we're working on. And so this map is useful in the sense that you can see the big picture and you can understand overlaps and gaps. But if you want to make really detail-oriented decisions of like, I want to get in touch with that organization, then, and you click their profile and it hasn't been completed by them, then you're kind of stuck. I can get back more into the utility part, but so let me just make sure what I wanted to cover. We have this is a dual element map, which means that there's two types of elements, coalitions and organizations. They have different surveys in sumApp. We can ask them different questions, and we can think about their relationships in really specific ways. I'm going to show you an example profile from in sumApp. This is someone that has both their email is linked with both a coalition and an organization. And so you can see that they have both tabs available at the top. And so you can switch for this person because they can access both elements. They have different questions in their survey. Here's a longer survey for the coalitions, and then a shorter survey for the organizations, which, as I was warned, would be slow to load. And so that's helpful for this ecosystem that wanted to know different things about organizations versus about coalitions. And the way that we show relationships here is only between organizations and coalitions. So okay, sorry, that's almost true. We can see how organizations participate in coalitions. We can also see how coalitions participate in coalitions. So like here I'm hovering on one of them and I can see that they participate, these two yellow ones have some shared participation. So is this the link? Yeah. So one of these coalitions participates in the other. So we can see that what we do not see, what we have not asked, is how organizations are in community or are in relation with each other. So we're not showing connections between the green dots. And this is something that we've gotten a lot of feedback on from the green dot saying, okay, yeah, I participate in coalitions, but you know what else I do? I have tons of really important partnerships with organizations, and they're not, collective enough to be considered a coalition. It's maybe what me and two other organizations working on really important advocacy. Can we show that on the map? Because it's really critical to what we do, and I want that to be seen and valued. And we say, well, we made the decision not to do that. It's a different question. It's a different purpose. Also, from a utility perspective, would be too much to see in this view, but that could be something to explore separately, a view of, partnerships between organizations. So as we've socialized the map, this is a case where we built a map before we had people involved with it, which is kind of backwards from how a lot of maps are made. And that helps when you have a consultant team that can like do the heavy lifting. We pre-populated all the profiles and then said, here's your profile, we made it for you. You can add the rest of your information, make sure it's accurate. So as organizations are getting oriented to their profiles, they say, oh, there's so much more I'd like to see done with this. And that's what we have to navigate and say, well, maybe in round 4. And it's great that you can be so iterative. And something the foundation really appreciated about this platform was that it wouldn't be a single static snapshot, but something that would evolve and be responsive to what people wanted to know about and how to change. I have so much I want to say and show. I was encouraged to share about the roles of the 3 hats for this map. So I think I'll say that, maybe show the 2 filters I have on this current view and then pause for questions, and I can show other things later. Um, I wear the tech hat. I'm the map administrator. I know everything about the map. I really enjoy the role, and it's really helpful for it to be me. I have the most intimacy with the kind of the tools, but I'm a consultant, I'm kind of a generalist, and I don't have the same depth of knowledge across what's happening in this ecosystem. It's been interesting to hold that and like not necessarily know exactly what's happening on the ground all the time. If I know I'm somewhat tuned in enough to know, oh, this person might have left an organization, I need to find their alternate contact, or this organization is rebranded, there's this new campaign. Like I'm vaguely aware enough, but I realize that if I were solely focused on this, I might have to be able to be even more responsive on the technical side to get in touch with each node as things are changing really dynamically, to be invited to all the right convenings so that people know me well. Like these are things that are aspirational, but that because I do a lot of other projects, I can't have that same depth that would make me a more effective technician. The visionary hat is worn by the foundation, who like was the first one to try to respond to what they'd been hearing and say maybe a map is their tool, and to help us, they helped us navigate the boundaries early on from, from what they thought would be useful. We had an advisory team as well, but they were kind of a shorter term guidance, so not a regular kind of people to set a vision and check in on it. And sense making, I'd say, is happening between me and the map users, or the people on the map. This year, I've been having a lot of individual conversations with coalitions and organizations to say, like, how is this going? How is it useful to you? What could make it more useful? How can I help you use it? And what we haven't done is any collective sense making this year, the convening around the map and making sense of it together. That's something that I'd love to see this community do in the future. And I've had a few coalitions that have said like, oh, I'd love to use this at a future convening. We haven't done that yet. So I see that we see the nodes on the map as being the sense makers, but right now it's happening individually with me rather than collectively with each other. Um, so that's kind of who's using the map. Um, you know what? Actually, I'll just stop there because I've stayed in kind of conceptual land rather than coding land and see what kind of questions there are, and maybe I can show things on the map based on what people are curious about. All right, floor is back to you all.
Does anybody have questions?
Um,
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's go Mary first and then Amy. Is that okay, Amy? Just because, yeah,
mhm.
go ahead, Mary.
Uh, I'm happy to see that a map that's iterative, and I'm wondering about what that means in terms of engagement. Are people engaged? And it sounds like you put in the profiles, so there's some activity around adding to profiles, or but what does I'm just curious about the user activity and engagement, if you could describe that.
Yeah, good question. So it's been pretty dynamic over time, or maybe what I mean is variable.
Uh-huh.
Um, when the times when the foundation in particular was helping us get it built early on, and they were sponsoring or organizing convenings around the map, there was a lot more engagement. And then, of
Uh-huh.
course, that makes sense because you want to be
Yeah.
responsive to foundations that you um,
Mm.
value.
Mhm.
Um, it also helped for those convenings that the foundation like sent everybody Uber Eats gift cards for lunch, um, and so on. So when we built the map, especially, I said that there's a lot of there's profiles are complete for maybe like 50 out of the 150 nodes on this map. Those are the grantees of this foundation and the
Mm.
coalitions that we put a lot of effort into engaging early on. For the other nodes, we've tried to ask the coalitions to do this engagement with their members rather than us doing it with their members. And
Mhm.
that's been relatively ineffective.
Mm.
It's been hard to build a lot of buy-in among the coalitions on this map that aren't grantees or that like are happy to share information but not necessarily use it because they might not see the value. And they've got a lot of other things going on where like another cool tool is not quite as useful as like a meeting with policymaker. Um, and so for that reason, for the other 100 nodes, there's been low to almost no engagement. The work I'm doing now is trying to do like work on that one node at a time,
Mhm.
hoping that there'll be some kind of socialization effect of of creating some buzz, seeing others use it, and like hoping to kind of hit gold. You know, it doesn't take every node to be excited, but maybe the right 4 or 5 that want to champion the map themselves and start using it in their work will, you know, slowly spread. And we're seeing some potential for early adopters in that sense. Um, so that's what engagement has been like. I think, you know, you said it's iterative, and you're from that perspective, kind of a thing that I've heard like most recently that like just hits me hard is like, this is a great tool. I can't wait to use it once it's done, which is real. It's like I see the value of this map and it won't be valuable until other people are using it fully. And so
Mhm.
I'm not going to use it until it's valuable. And there's the chicken and egg problem that probably resonates with all of you. Um, but at the very least, that organization has completed their profile and they're like, know about it and they're ready for, you know, the bigger announcement being like, we've reached, I don't know, 60%. Like, I don't know what percentage it will take for it to be done.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's something that we've heard.
I have sort of part two to this question. Does the foundation use the map in terms of their grant making? Is
No,
it
and they've been
valuable to
clear.
them?
They've been clear. with grantees that they are not using this to judge or evaluate
Okay.
their grantees.
Mhm.
And there's trade-offs with that, as you can imagine, right? If it might feel higher stakes to know that funding decisions were made around it, but also it could become a power tool that the foundation
Mhm.
doesn't want
Right. Yeah.
to rest on. Yeah.
Mhm.
Amy, you had a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about the foundation as well, but I was curious if you know how the foundation even knew to imagine a tool like this and to put out an RFP. Like, what was that like?
Yeah. So I told the part of the story about how they're kind of with their ears to the ground, they'd been hearing the rumblings of the need for an ability to navigate, um, to understand the landscape. And so the they knew that they wanted to be responsive somehow, and they not only fund their grantees directly, but they do kind of field building and tool development, resource development in general too. And so it was natural for them to put money into creating a tool that everyone could use, their grantees and beyond. And so first, that's an important thing to note. Not all foundations do things like that. Um, their original vision for this was maybe more of a landscape analysis than a social systems map. Um, and it, I think maybe landscape analysis can speak for itself, but basically what to help organizations kind of in the moment understand uh, the power dynamics, the opportunities, the gaps, which would have been helpful like kind of at that point in time. In working with our team, and part of what we pitched was more of a dynamic model, the social systems map, that we felt would be more responsive to the way that they had described the need. And so when we read the RFP, we thought, okay, this sounds like a landscape analysis could work, but it also sounds like a social systems map might be a better solution, and that's what we pitched, and they were interested in that. And so in working with them, showing them other examples, helping them understand how it would be a kind of bottom-up map where ultimately the information here is supplied by the users themselves rather than by a consultant, and that it can live with the users and they can continue to use it over time was more compelling than a kind of a snapshot. Now, on the other hand, we did pre-build it with information from the consultants, but
Yeah.
that was a strategy to kind of have enough critical mass for people to say, oh, this is a thing, rather than we would be even worse in the like, I'll use it when it's ready, for people to at least see that it's done, just needs to be updated. So they were excited about the social systems map. And I think especially once we convened an advisory team and we heard from those organizational leaders that they wanted that kind of dynamism and the longer term use, it really solidified that this would be the right tool, that it could be sufficiently flexible and responsive over time, which is what they wanted. So that's kind of the story of how they got onto this idea. And I think what I'll say is that the part of it being really driven by the organizations on the map itself rather than their vision has been the most fundamental. That it was shaped by not only the advisory team, but continues to be shaped by the requests that we hear from the community, is what they are most, like, they're not even on this map. There are some foundations on here that, participate in coalitions, but this foundation like is not represented here.
Was there more, Amy?
Oh, that was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just want to throw in an observation, which is that I know I like to frame it as the ideal is to include as many people right up front and not to do the sort of pre-form, that kind of preliminary thing from a very, like the way you did it. But at the same time, there are lots of contexts where if you don't do it the way you did it, you'll never have anything. And like which you just acknowledged. And so I feel like sometimes people take it too much to heart and say, oh, we have to do it the ideal way. It has to be widely collaborative and it has to be, all of these things. And I feel like, no, it doesn't have to be. It just, if you can do that, that's a wonderful place to start. But I like people to start where they can start, where they can feel like that starting point will get as much initial traction as possible, and then hold it in the way you're holding it, which is that, okay, we started here, but this isn't the final. This isn't where we started isn't carved in stone. Where we started isn't the authority of how it's going to be, but let it evolve and emerge and keep responding to the feedback. So from my perspective, especially given the really high level scale that you're working at, I'm thrilled that you found your way into that and did it the way you did it. I don't have any sense of like, oh, it should have been different.
Yeah, and Christine, you and I had a number of conversations right as I was needed to make this decision exactly of should I pre-populate or not? Like that it felt like an existential
Yeah.
decision. And man, sumApp was not built for you to pre-populate it.
No, it
Like
wasn't.
it was what was easy was creating the dots, right? Of uploading the members.
Mhm.
What was hard was the manually you have to go into each profile and report their connection, their participation in coalitions.
Yeah, their connections. Yeah,
Right.
you can upload their survey data, but we have not made it so that you can easily pre-populate the connections. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't regret what we did. But I think there remains I see the same that same maybe it's a cliff or a road bump or some kind of inertial bump
Yeah.
that could have stopped me from even getting this far. I have it now with
Yeah.
that, even though you can see the whole thing and you can get a lot further with what's here, the fact that profiles aren't complete and that people aren't widely aware and using it is its own inertial setback.
Yeah.
And it's a question that we're navigating now of like, what's the future of this map? Do we need to cross that bump in order for it to be useful? Or can it be useful with partial information?
Mhm.
And if it's living and dynamic, then, at some point, how much oxygen does it need? Or is it too much oxygen to get over that bump is a question that we're navigating right now.
Yeah. 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 All of these, I think, are sort of the core questions of the whole methodology, which has to do with adoption. Like there's a population like us who see the value and who get it and who are working hard at helping people get it enough so that they will, put in their, spend 10 minutes every once in a while, keeping it up to date, which is when I think of it, it's a really small ask to get the benefits. Just go in and populate it. But if people don't get it, they're not going to. And so like that chicken and egg, like that underlying chicken and egg conundrum is just feels to me like the core challenge of social system mapping.
And I'll say that what I'm learning, like a major lesson I've learned or relearned, maybe the fifth time relearned this year, is that the nodes of power on this map are the coalitions, that they're the ones who are best positioned to convene and do sense making around the map, to socialize it, to make it useful, and that they should be convening their members around it.
Yeah.
And I put too much effort this year into engaging some of the organizations to understand how it was useful to them. And I should have been focused almost exclusively on the coalitions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm pivoting now. And, I recently had a call with one of the coalitions that was like, we want to use this at our next convening. Can you help, can you help facilitate that and prepare us for it?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I wish all 20 of them had said that, but
Yeah.
I need an hour call with each of them to like get them to see that and
Yeah.
to become excited about it. But like scheduling that call is really tough.
Yeah.
Even though they have participated.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like you have had more support, like resource support. Sounds like you spent a lot of time, more time than is often available for a mapper.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it sounds like there's support there for you spending that time, even though it's not as much time as you feel like is needed. And that's another
Yeah.
concern. Yeah,
Well, it's more like the time that I think I needed to approach the time in a different way. Relationship time is a really different time to plan and scope for than like the technical parts of the map.
Yeah.
Like the outreach, the back and
Yeah.
forth.
yeah,
But the foundation is really understood well that it needs to invest time into this map, and it's been hard for us to figure out how to use that time well, even though we have it.
I do also just want to say, my sense, having done this for 10 years now, some form of it or another for 10 years, is that the that chicken and egg problem is more and more people are seeing the value more quickly than they did 10 years ago. So my sense is that the momentum in the ethers of the of the network weaving fields is it's still a big challenge, but it's getting more possible than it was 10 years ago for there to be like active engagement and buy-in and support. So
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just say, and I know Mary, you're about to ask, and I feel like Tom, at some point, you might have unmuted too. A challenge that I feel is I'm like a somewhat unknown map technician. I'm a consultant. I have the kind of, I can always say on behalf of the foundation, but ultimately I'm a name in an inbox that people don't recognize. And even though we have a lot of time and the foundation is broadly supportive, they're not going to send emails individually to every organization on this map, or to try to, they'll only use so much of their power to convene or to bring in the coalitions. And so something that I appreciate is that, like, that as a technician hat, where I can only do so much in the relationship building alone,
yeah,
because I'm trying to do that and then bringing the sense making. And
Yeah.
if there were others who were working with me or doing that outreach for sense making, it might go differently just
Yeah.
because of the name that comes through the inbox.
yeah, and there's already a certain amount of relationships already in place that you can lean into.
Yeah.
In other contexts. Tom, did you have a question or comments?
More curious, more technical than conceptual, and just around the profiles and like the email address. So I assume for each of these, then there's like a point person, since they're not people.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So each node has oh, yeah, okay. This is an annoying part. So I think this one's fine to share. So each using the sumApp system, right? First name, last name. So I have to tell each, when you're joining the map, I have to make sure to say, first name is the organization, last name is a dash, or I have to change it themselves when they inevitably put their name there. And then we have a point person or multiple. And those are the people who are the primary map users. And this is what I pay attention to with turnover between organizations. Some people have said, I want a third layer here of individuals, because we're the ones who actually have the relationships and we move between organizations. Where are the reasons our organization participates in these coalitions? And we're like, oh, no way. No three elements here. So yes, they're representative. It's easier for smaller orgs. For larger orgs, it's been hard to even ask the question in a right way of, like, who are the right people who should be contributing to this survey. One of the entities on the map is like, a large planning council, and they're working on transportation in lots of different ways. And so, fully covering the way that they're involved, and which all the ways that planning council participates in different coalitions might be across 6 different staff. and they're probably not even aware of it. And so, it's not perfect, but it's something that we try to navigate bit by bit. But just to show you, like, from the other view, different organization, but one of the same contact people because they're a convener of this organization. So this organization convenes the coalition, so it's the same point person who can access both profiles in this example.
So again, so who can eMason also log in and change information?
Yeah.
Or only, so you can have multiple people manage either an organization or a coalition.
Yeah. And so when you, we have this like stock text,
Mhm.
like basic text here for the ones that, and you're seeing this view as I'm logged in. So I have some private fields, by
I
the way,
understand.
but if you haven't made your profile, for example, I have this text that says like, use this link to opt in, or not to opt in, to do this, send me your link. And then what we did was we got the name of an organization like this one, and then we found the publicly available email from their website and said, that's the one we put in here for your profile. If you have access to it, then you'll get the link to that email. And if not, then contact me and I'll figure it out for you.
Mm.
But it means that, whoever is coming across this can add their email to it. Whoever does the send me my link, if there is one of the 3 emails, then they'll get the link to the profile. So it creates a little bit of redundancy, but we haven't had any issues with it yet.
Okay,
Or the opposite issue of like just trying to get people to access their profiles at all.
thank you.
I will say Evan, the issue of the org name having to be in the first name, last name, as opposed to org name or coalition name is, we're working on the connections survey update so that it's using the same tool, the same platform as the same interface as the survey. And once that's done, and we have run into lots of little discoveries of, oops, we need to fix this. Oops, we need in the background things that no one will ever see, but that are consuming time. But having said all that, changing that is at the top, is like the top of the list of publicly noticeable changes that we have on tap. So we will get to that.
And a
But
benefit of me pre-populating this is that if you have a dot already created, you'll probably never actually see or notice the first name thing. You'll only ever create your bio and fill out your survey. I've done that back-end work of making your dot in the first place. It's
yeah,
only for adding new orgs that are gonna come across it. And the few times that's happened, I've just fixed it if they didn't do it right and not even
Yeah.
said anything to them.
it's for other clients, though, it's becoming a bigger issue. So we've decided we're gonna get, so you'll, just for future reference, that will be
All
fixed.
right, great.
Yeah. I'm glad it's not a huge challenge for you. Yeah. Other questions or comments? Anyone?
I was wondering if there are conferences or large gatherings that all of these coalitions go to where the map has played a part.
It's a good question. The answer is it hasn't happened yet. I hope that
Oh.
it will. The foundation that created this map has used it in one recent workshop that they convened around power mapping. And that brought in maybe like 20 or so organizations, but they were already the ones that had been involved with the map because they were their own grantees. As far as I'm aware, no other large convenings have used the map, but that is one of the places where it can and should be used. I'm hopeful
Okay.
that one of the coalition I mentioned recent that said they want to use it in an upcoming convening will do so. But I guess I haven't looked into presenting it on behalf of the foundation or with the foundation at a convening. like an
Mm.
independent convening that
Mhm.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of the organizations will be at.
Mhm.
That feels like something that doesn't feel right for me to be the one to do that as the technician, but
Mm.
it's maybe something that we should be proposing to the foundation and then presenting it with
Mhm.
them, or that they would invite some of their grantees to lead. But
Mhm.
I hadn't really thought about that actually.
Um,
Wanna-
yeah.
Can I share with you just a process? So I've been doing this with more clients, is starting to, in context where the map is being presented, to actually invite someone who's in a position to use it in other, like, so a foundation staff person or someone on your, whatever your design team or whatever the label of the teams are. I try to get somebody else to navigate the map as soon as possible. So I mean, you're a ways into it, but even just inviting, so like rather than having you present it, invite them to, someone who's comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable, inviting them to do it, and then you be there as backup. So I pitch this as like, you will get more comfortable navigating the map, and you'll discover when you do it in front of other people, you'll discover lots of things. And you'll also be modeling for the others in the context that it's okay to not know everything, and it's okay to just fumble around, and you can't break anything. And so anyway, I've been trying to sort of push the navigation capacity onto the people who are actually in the position to be using it and sharing it as much as I can. Now, only to the degree that they're comfortable. If there's nobody who's comfortable, if they all say, oh no, I can't do that because I'm not an expert yet, I do my little pitch of like, this is not about expertise, this is about a learning curve. And if they still say no, then I drop it. But when you, just because you were saying you don't feel like it's necessarily your place to be doing that, this is a way to sort of try and gradually get other people's capacity built and move yourself out of that position and still have it be getting presented, etc. So
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, both of you. I'll just share some reflections, or like why, as I'm processing the reason why this hasn't occurred to me and why I'm not sure I will pursue it.
mhm,
Um, the all the information on the most of the information on the map is theoretically publicly available. You could learn anything in a profile by looking at an organization or coalition's website or Instagram or
mhm,
trying hard enough, right? There's nothing truly private. Maybe one of the coalitions, like their members, they have their own Google Doc, like, but it's not a secret.
mhm,
However, we've made the decision, especially with the foundation, that like this map is intended for those who are on it. That's the
mhm,
language that we use. This is where it's not password protected, but it's not publicized.
mhm.
We don't want there's a concern about like advocates who are opposed to some of these agendas to
Mm,
like either co-opt the map or
mhm,
to
Mhm.
use it to their own agenda in a
Mhm.
way that would be, get in the way, I guess. Um, and so there's, head nodding to that, like it's a sympathetic decision, but it comes with a lot of trade-offs. One being that, you know, presenting it at an environmental conference or a just environment, maybe a broadly climate justice conference in Massachusetts, where a lot of organizations who will never be on this map because they're not transportation focused will
mhm.
see it. Like,
Yeah.
is that a problem? Like, maybe not ultimately, but it's not what we've
Mhm,
decided the shareability of the map is.
Mhm.
And I think even if we're at a transportation conference, similarly, if they're, people who are seeing the map and say, how can I use this to my advantage? We want to minimize that.
mhm.
Um, so I, I think if there's a version where we push through that, if we wanted to rethink how shareable this map was, it would open the door to share, to socialize it widely, to more easily catch those who are on it, maybe even expand who's on it in a productive way, but with the downside that maybe it takes, the bigger it gets, the
Mhm.
further it gets from the core kind of justice focused community-based organizations that are in the center of this map because they helped design it.
Mhm.
And that's the risk. So I'm not sure what I'll do with this, but it's a really interesting thought experiment at the very least.
So I want to add two sort of qualifiers to what I said, or thoughts about what's coming up from you. One is, I wasn't proposing that everybody learn how to do it anywhere, but like the people who are already, like the coalitions that, so if you're presenting, the idea is to, if there's like a coalition that you are asking for help getting their organizations on the map, like just giving them the opportunity to navigate it on the screen.
Yeah,
So
totally
they're
understood. And
comfortable
I'm
with it.
on board with that.
Yeah, so it's not about training everybody to share it everywhere. The other thought I have is, you might, probably most people don't know this, but there's a thing in sumApp where you can use a terms of agreement. So you can write up a terms of agreement and then have a link to that, and then going forward, if people are updating it themselves, they have to. So it might not work in your pre-populated context, but I just want to say it anyway. That if they don't click that they agree to the terms of agreement, they can't go forward into the survey. So, but the essence, so that's a technical piece, but the essence of what I was thinking as I was hearing you was, what about, I mean, maybe it's not possible, but to like articulate how you want the map to be, like what's the focus in the context, and then ask people, and then like just say that this is how we want it to be used, and we ask you to agree not to use it in these kind of contexts, or have some kind of like vetting policy for, if you're going to share it at a big event, you need to check in with somebody, or here are the criteria, or just something like that, so that it's not an either or, an all or nothing. It's a sort of, there's some boundaries articulated, and maybe some process around and agreements around that. That's a lot of work, I know, but it's just a thought that comes to me.
Yeah, I think we've put trust in that. So this map is like anybody can join it.
Mhm.
And I haven't had a review process,
Mhm.
but we are hoping and trusting that because we're not sharing it widely, that it's only growing organically in the ways that it should, and monitoring new dots. But I think it would be a viable strategy to switch that and say, let's open the floodgates, and we're just going to have a review process and be really clear about what its intentions are, and know that you could be removed for violating it or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a strategy, bigger strategy. It's not just a tactical of like, how do I monitor it, but it's a bigger strategy of like, what does that open up for us, and what are the risks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and Kara, I just want to say, we're not doing, I don't think we need to do announcements, because everybody here knows the schedule, and we're at the top of the hour.
Mhm.
Just want to see if there's any if anybody has any appreciations they'd like to share with Evan, and then we'll wrap up.
I really appreciate what you brought, Evan, which is different than what other people have brought, and will be very useful in terms of a use case, and hope that the foundation, which is creating tools, will maybe in this context of what we were just talking about, be able to move with it to be helpful for other people. Other,
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
organizations, yeah.
Well, I appreciate your advocacy when you get that RFP
Mhm.
to bring sumApp into the picture, because it wasn't, sounds like even on their radar.
Mhm.
And the fact that they saw value in it, even if it's not fully realized, is really encouraging. And then even get to perspective like the constellation view, that was a really helpful
Mhm.
way to think about making sense of the sky. That was,
Mhm.
it's good
Yeah.
stuff.
That's all that on the foundation. They've been leaning into the space imagery. We've got little astronaut icons and everything. Thank you, Tom.
Cool. Well, I just appreciate your like diligent creativity of like just how many little boulders in the stream you've had to figure out your own way around, that all I could do was suggest ideas, but you had to figure out the actual implementation of them, and you've been sort of relentlessly creatively problem solving. Appreciated watching that from a distance.
I'm really grateful to all of you because I ask questions in the Slack. I bother Christine. I have more credibility and power even to do this because I can say that everyone else does. And shout out to Sarah Shanahan, by the way, who like was an early inspiration and example of what it could be like. It's their map the reamp map that I showed to the foundation to be like,
cool.
this is what it could be.
Cool.
That really made a big difference. So
Yeah.
thanks to this community.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you. This was so wonderful. Amy, did you want to are you good? Did you?
Enjoy your bread.
I appreciate seeing the bread trick. That was really cool.
Thank you so much. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, I invite you to send me a connection request, putting it in the chat. I know we're already connected through the Slack, but it's there too.
It's great. Thanks. Cool. Okay, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Yes. Enjoy it. Thank
Take
you.
care,
Good
y'all.
to see
Thank
you
you.
all. Have a wonderful Monday.
Bye-bye.